When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning, world. How are we all? Everybody okay? I hope you are. I'm really excited today because when I started the show 150 episodes ago, you just start it and you don't really know where it's going to go. You just kind of throw it out and hopefully get a few connections and get a bit of momentum. We've now got the advertisers coming on board. We've got a few that we're in conversation with at the moment who want to put their products at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show. So hopefully when we choose the right ones for you, it's going to be the right products which will benefit you in your leap of faith and your entrepreneurial journeys, whatever you want to do. Now, let me bring you on to today's guest, because that's what we're here for. He is a man who, it seems, is a person born to be an entrepreneur, although like many of us, he forgot this was the case, and he meandered without direction for quite a while. As a young boy of 9, he became fascinated by the World Wide Web and the possibilities that it offered. He was stimulated by the constantly changing online landscape, and so went into business creating his first website, PowerDunk. Sounds like a good one. He'd taken entrepreneurial action and dived headfirst into the online world. Now, however, he didn't then become a CEO of his own company, hiring and firing adults, web developers and other employees with abandon. Instead, he quickly forgot his blossoming business and became what we would say a normal kid. Yes, fun and mischief was the order of the day, and would have continued if his parents hadn't insisted that he'd entered the family business to earn $1 or $2, and this parental push turned out to be the making of him. He learnt so many things such as sales, invoicing, marketing, to name just a few, whilst working for his parents, that it was actually a masterclass in entrepreneurial ventures. But the most important lesson was not something taught, but something that he discovered deep within himself. He hated being an employee and working for someone else, and that realisation took him back to his 9-year-old self, and the entrepreneur that he was born to be resurfaced, and he's never looked back. And now, after creating and selling businesses and coaching others as to the steps it takes to win online, he's found his true path in life. So does he look back to PowerDunk and think, man, I could have created something astonishing, it could have been Facebook 1? Or did he struggle with telling his parents that he didn't want to work with them anymore? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots, the one and only Jeet Banerjee. How are you, Jeet?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
PowerDunk. Normally, I do a little preamble first of all, but I have been looking at the name of PowerDunk all day, and I couldn't find anything about what it is. So let's cut to the chase, young man. What is PowerDunk, and could it have been Facebook 1?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I had this big obsession with basketball. So I literally spent all my time either playing basketball or, once I was tired, coming home and just searching the internet, looking for pictures, videos, and just about anything that I could find. So after doing this for my whole summer vacation, I finally got to the point where I couldn't find any more original content, and I was kind of bored of everything that was on the internet. So I had this great idea about, because I was a big fan of basketball dunks at that time, like the most powerful, jaw-breaking dunks. So I wanted to create a site where I could just share the most epic dunks in basketball and share them with the internet. And that's really what the whole fundamental idea of the site was when I was 9 years old.
I could have worked that out myself, really. I've been looking at it all day thinking, what the hell's PowerDunk? And as soon as you said it, I thought, duh. Yeah, of course it was. So who was a great power dunker in your days?
So the biggest one was Shaquille O'Neal. I remember the one where he dunks and he breaks the whole backboard and everything comes crashing down. So he's got to be number 1 on the list.
And did Michael Jordan, was he a power dunker? I know nothing about basketball. I'm just throwing out names.
He was definitely a good dunker, but he was a little bit before my generation. So I didn't get to see as much footage or as much film of him as I wish I could have.
You didn't even see that classic Space Jam when he was with Bugs Bunny?
Oh, no, I definitely saw that one, yeah.
That is probably his highlight, isn't it? If Michael Jordan is laying on his deathbed, hopefully he's not, because he's still a young man, really. But I think, don't you think he'll look back to his days with Bugs Bunny and going, that was it. That was the moment I proved myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that movie was awesome. So I hope he does look back on it.
Yeah, don't be ashamed of it, Michael. We all remember it with fondness. And did you remember your 9-year-old power dunking obsession with fondness? Do you look back on it and kind of go, wow, if I had carried on? Because you're still young. How old are you? 22 or something?
21 right now, yeah.
21, 22. So do you look back sort of like the last 10 years and go, God, if I had carried on? Or do you kind of go, well, actually, I'm still quite young. I'm still, at the beginning of my learning curve in many senses. So I'm okay where I am.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, when I look back nowadays, I really wish that I had started and had the ambition that I have today when I was 9 years old, because I just try to think of all that I could have achieved if I had an extra 12 years or 10 years under my belt. So, that's always a thought in my mind, even though I'm young. And oftentimes people will tell me like, oh, I'm so jealous how young you started. I still have that thought in the back of my mind, like, dang, why didn't I start earlier? What was I thinking?
Yeah, do you get yourself sort of surrounded by these people? Because I speak to people and they say, oh, I started my first business at the age of 4. And I go, really? It would never have crossed my mind. I was 44 before I did anything like this. And so, I had 22 years on yourself, or 23 years. And so when you see like these youngsters and they are entrepreneurial from the word go, is it something that's just in them? Is it something that's tangible? Or is it something that's, the surrounding area that they live, they've got mums and dads that are in that environment, so they kind of encourage them? What's your spin on it?
So my spin personally is I think that your circumstances and your kind of environment and surroundings really determine kind of what path you take. Like personally for me, let's say like my parents didn't want to teach me the value of a dollar when I was 15, 16, and they kind of just kept paying for all the stuff I wanted and kind of kept me in the spoiled way that I wanted them to. I probably wouldn't have been an entrepreneur today because I wouldn't have had that need essentially to become an entrepreneur. But it was only when I took these jobs and I really saw how frustrating it was getting a job and kind of doing that hourly thing that I realized that I can do better. I can excel with the hours that I'm already putting in and stuff. So I think you really need to put someone in a situation or surround them with people that are constantly feeding them with certain ideas for them to really take an unordinary path or something unique.
So is it kind of burn or learn? And what I mean by that phrase, if you're in a situation that you don't like, you've got one chance. You've got to learn to get out of it. And nowadays, the risky choice for many people is actually trying to find a job, because you could spend months and months and months trying to find a job, get into the job, A, don't like it, or B, they don't like you, and then you're out of it. Is it the chance now that you've got to say to youngsters, you really got to learn to earn your own buck?
Yeah, yes and no. Like my biggest thing to other people has been just do what makes you really happy. So when I got jobs, after taking like 10 to 12 different jobs in the span of 2 years, I knew that it didn't make me happy because every job felt like a chore and I was extremely frustrated. And then I have other friends that have just graduated college or something and they're working as like a financial analyst or something and they absolutely love their job. So to me, I think it's really about finding like what you're really passionate about and what what gets you up in the morning real quick, and whether that's earning on your own or whether that's basically creating your own business. Getting a job that fulfills your path and stuff like that. It's just really choosing what you need to do.
That's a key point, and that's one of the key points that we make on this show, that this show isn't about an entrepreneurial leap of faith, because some people, they're never going to do that. They're not entrepreneurial in any shape or form, and they are born to be employees. But you don't have to be an unhappy employee, do you? You can, if you're in a job that you think is a bit crappy and you don't like the people working around you, get another job. There's so many opportunities to be happy, and it might be a leap of faith into a different direction, but you're still an employee. But that's the kind of things that people should think about. They've only got one life, so they've got to make the most of it and don't be miserable any day.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think it just pans down to happiness, because I think when we're young, a lot of people are just focused on, I want to have a lot of money, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. But as you kind of get older and you figure out life, you kind of realize that it's not about money, really. Money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. It's more about doing things that excite you, finding your passion, stuff like that. So whether it's a job or your own company, just find something that makes you really happy and just focus your attention on that.
Right, I've got so many questions, Jeet. You're giving me a powerhouse episode, a power dunk episode, this one. How is it, though, that you're 22, and I'm going to say this from the heart. It might sound like an insult, but it's not. How is it that somebody so young is so rounded in being able to teach other people about finding passion, finding fun in their life, finding the thing that lights them up inside? Because certainly I always had that in me. I could always switch it on and inspire people to do stuff. But it wasn't something that I ever thought, for example, I could make money out of. It was just something I did. But you're quite early in your game, and you've got the ability to actually have these quite heavy conversations with people to change their lives. How has that come about?
To be honest, it was something that really found me. So it wasn't something like I was going out there looking to kind of inspire people or help people. I was just kind of doing my own thing on my own journey. And I opened up a blog of my own, and I suddenly started getting emails from other young entrepreneurs and even old people that were really interested in diving into their own business or finding happiness in life. And they just started emailing me questions and different things that they wanted my insight on. And I would just kind of go back to them and answer it to the best of my ability. And after about a few months, I figured out that this was something that I was really good at, because people were saying, oh my God, this helped me so much, or you helped me realize this or that. And then from there, like, more opportunities started coming about, like speaking events, consulting opportunities. I got a TEDx opportunity, just all from like these organic people that were just hearing about my story or getting a good testimonial and coming to find me. So I don't know what to put the spot on. I think the biggest thing was that since I kind of went through the journey myself, I experienced it firsthand. I guess I knew the feeling, and I was really able to relate with other people. And I think being able to relate with others is a very, very key fact. So it's not like I was preaching at them, but I was kind of like more like, I'm on the same journey as you. Here's how I'm doing. Here's what I think. And here's what I'm telling you. So it was kind of something like along the lines of that.
Do you know who you remind me of? And I bet you've heard this, but the name of Pat Flynn comes up time and time and time and time again on these conversations. And when Pat Flynn, and I'm sure you know who he is, when he started, he was very much like yourself. He was receiving emails from people, and he was just answering them with the most honest response he could. And he wasn't somebody saying, I know all the answers, but this is where I am at the moment, and this is what I think. And it was that honesty and that providing value that really set him apart. And you sound very similar to that you were openly answering these people to the best of your ability, as you say, and they resonated from that. Now, is that because so many people are wary of the online game, that they're going to get burnt or they're going to get caught by a shark, that when somebody almost puts a hand up and goes, look, I know this, it may not be the full answer, but it's as good as I know at the moment, that's actually more powerful than the opposite way of going, I know everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing I realized from all the emails and stuff that I was getting from people was that I realized that most people like knew exactly what they wanted to do, but it was kind of like they needed reassurance from someone successful or someone on the journey that they could do it. So more often than not, it wasn't like questions of like how to get started or how to do this or how to do that. It was more like people sharing their dream with me and telling me like, what do you think about this? And just kind of looking for almost that confirmation that they can do this and that someone else believes in them. And just having that belief in other people, I think helps a lot. And I think that's the biggest thing that people were seeking from me personally online when I was getting these emails.
It is. It's reassurance, isn't it? I get so many emails from people saying, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And I kind of go back to them and I say, well, it sounds good. I don't know anything about it. But if you think it's, a great thing to do and it's something that's going to fill you up with passion, blah, 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 then go about it. And I'll be interested in your point of view on this, because there's so many listeners out there that are on the bus, they're on the train, they're queuing up somewhere, and they're listening to these conversations, and they're in a job that they don't like, or they're in a relationship they don't like, and they want to do something different. But there's that kind of balancing point. There's the ones that just go, leap of faith, just jump and you make it up as you go down, and if you burn all your bridges, then you'll be all right. Or there's the other side of the fence, and that I kind of lean on, that kind of go, no, don't make it a leap of faith, make it a slide of faith, kind of, prepare for it. Do as much as you can while you're in employment, because when the time comes, it's not going to be so scary, and at least you can cover your income. What kind of advice do you give? Where do you sit on that? Are you on my side, the kind of risk averse, or are you on the one, jump off the cliff and make the parachute as you fall?
Oh no, absolutely. So I'm actually on your side on this one. It's funny because I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I'm all about taking calculated risks. So if you have a big dream or something you want to do and you've never done it before, I think it's really irrational to just say, I'm going to drop everything I have right now and go 100% into this. Instead, I said it's almost like the sliding scale. Like, okay, divert 10% of your attention to that and keep 90% of your attention where it's been. And then as you see progress and as you see yourself liking it more, kind of just move the two sides and balance it out until your dream overpowers your daily job or whatever it is. So that's something that I agree with you completely on.
When was your dream? How can I rephrase that? Because you were kind of doing your thing without knowing it, wasn't you? You was in your job with your mum and dad, and they were teaching you things, but inside you had that well building up that suddenly sprung out, and you thought, I can't do this anymore. I need to do my own thing. So it wasn't the kind of, your life was terrible, I need to make the leap. It was more that you just need to make the leap. So do you remember when you was, at the filing cabinet, or you're at the photocopier, and you suddenly thought, I can't bear this anymore, I've got to do my own thing, but how do I tell mum and dad that I don't want to work with them anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember the moment perfectly. So I was kind of at my dad's office or whatever, and I had to do invoices at the end of each month. So he had about like 100 or so clients. So I'd have to go on QuickBooks, type in the amounts, print out all these invoices, date them, and then put them in an envelope, stamp them, and send them out for mail. So I got off school late one day, maybe 4:30, and I was there. It was like the 31st of the month, and I did all these invoices. And then when I'm about to seal up the last one, I noticed the date on it was like 5/31 instead of 6/1. And my dad was extremely picky about these kinds of things. So I showed it to him, and I was like, I've already sealed them. I've already wasted all the stamps, everything. Can I just leave it and mail it out? And it was almost 8:30 at this time. And he said, nope, you got to go back. You made a mistake. You got to fix everything from scratch. So I had to reprint, restamp, redo everything from scratch. And that was probably the most frustrating experience of like my life, having to do that and be at the office till like 10:30, even when my father was gone. And that was like my breaking point where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like I need to do something on my own. And that's when I kind of shifted away.
And how did you phrase it to him? You went home that night and you said, Dad, I've got something to tell you. Here's my notice. You got me for the next 4 weeks. Or did you just go, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore?
So yeah, it was kind of more like the second part. I just went home that night and I was like, I am done. I am not doing this anymore. It's over, finished. And I just threw like a little rant, and I was frustrated, and I was kind of done. And it wasn't even at the point that I really had made up my mind that I'm going to go start my own business or whatever it was. It was more like, I'm going to find a new opportunity. And then in the next coming weeks, as my cash flow kind of started drying out, I started looking up different opportunities. I kind of stumbled upon the idea of entrepreneurship. And in those next couple of weeks is when I was like, okay, let me give this path a shot.
But that's so broad, isn't it? Entrepreneurship. I know from the emails that I get, my listeners almost want an answer. They almost say, these are my passions, what should I do? And we have these chats, and we have Skype calls, and we do coaching sessions. But to just go, it's entrepreneurial, what should I do within that entrepreneurial world? That's almost so big, it will blow people's minds, because there's too much choice out there. How did you narrow it down to something that you could do? Did you look back to like Power Dunk and think, okay, I created a website, I probably could do that again? How did it sort of pan out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like the biggest thing I wanted to do was, because I knew that like most industries and most companies to start had a huge learning curve. So I started with the things that I knew and the things that I liked. So when I broke that list down and I was creating like a T-chart to figure this out, I was literally down to like 2 or 3 ideas that I could have possibly done. And out of the 2 or 3 ideas, one of them probably made the most sense. And it ended up being creating websites for other customers, doing like videos, mobile apps, and online marketing. So that was kind of the whole idea, because I had understood like how to make websites, what makes a good website, and it was something that I really enjoyed doing, just seeing like your ideas come to life. So that's when I was like, that's it, I'm going to create my own like web development company, and it was just stemming from all the things I knew and all the things that I liked.
Can you remember the other two that you sort of threw away that you didn't want to do?
One of them was tutoring. So I was pretty good at like in terms of like math and stuff like that at school, but it wasn't something I really liked. So I kind of threw that one away, even though I knew a lot about it. And then the third thing was coming back to basketball, but I couldn't really think of any solid way to monetize just basketball because it was so broad. So that's the third one that I threw away.
And could you do it now with your experience? You know, I'm not going to ask you, you know, what you would do, but do you think that you could monetize basketball?
I absolutely think I could monetize basketball, but I think what it would come down to the end of the day would be, is the amount of monetization I'll get from basketball worth it compared to X, Y, and Z? So when I kind of weigh it like that, it'd probably not be worth it, but I could definitely find a way to monetize it, yes.
Because I have fascinating chats with some of my mates who are really good at computers. If my computers ever break down, I always phone them up and they come round and they go, oh yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I go, why are you working for someone? You should do this for yourself. You should go out there. And a lot of them say to me, yes, you see, but it's my hobby. And if I do it for a job, then I won't like it as much. And I kind of go, that's madness. Surely, if it's a hobby, that's the best job. That's the thing that you like doing. And if you're getting paid for it, then why not do it? But there seems to be that sort of that elastic band on them that kind of holds them back from actually doing something that they like doing. It's almost like they feel that work has to be horrible and hobbies have to be good. And I come along now and I say, look, I just have these conversations on the mic every single day. I love them. In many ways, it doesn't feel like work. Hey, isn't that a hobby? Isn't that a hobby that you've sort of joined them up? What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've definitely heard that as well. So, I mean, when I've heard that in the past, it's basically been like my biggest opinion on that is that I think people like know that a job is so horrible, kind of what you were saying. So they expect that like something so good, if they turned it into work, it would end up being horrible as well. So they end up kind of shying away from doing that, so to speak.
A lot of it comes from school, isn't it? We are brainwashed at school that we have to get a job, we have to get our qualifications, we have to sit in boring classrooms day after day after day. So when we go to work, we kind of think that's what life is. I've spent the last 10 years doing this, doing stuff I don't really want to do. This is it, but at least I'm getting paid for it. And that's a kind of, you know, the Achilles heel of everything. When you say to people, why aren't you doing it? They kind of go, yeah, well, because I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and you kind of go, well, yeah, but you could do both of it. You could have the money and love doing it as well. I'm on a bit of a rant here, Jeet. I'm going to play a bit of a motivational speech here, and this says perfectly what I'm saying. This is Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Is that the message that we're talking about, Jeet?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite speeches as well. So that's awesome that you shared that.
Well, why do you think that is so powerful? Because when I first heard it, it really did make the hairs go up at the back of my neck. It was just so simple, but so overwhelmingly powerful that I almost wanted the world to sit down and listen to that and listen to it every single day. What does it touch in you when you listen to it?
So I think the biggest thing that touches on me is that I think a lot of people have these like dreams and big aspirations for what they want to do, but they never even give it a chance, or they never even try it once. And I think that's the biggest thing he's saying, is that nothing is impossible unless you actually even give it a shot or you even try. And I think that's the biggest thing that hits hard because I think so many people have dreams that they never even give a shot to or try or do on the side, when all they need to do is try just to see how it pans out. If it doesn't work out, then their life stays the way it is. And if it ends up working out, then their life ends up being 1,000 times better. So that's really where it hits for me.
And what they can do by tackling the impossible, or in their mind it's the impossible before they do it, quite often it doesn't work, but it leaves you in a different position. And I generally find by taking huge action and being positive towards something, you end up in a better position than you were anyway, because you suddenly realize, hey, I'm taking control of my life. Up to this point, I've been pushed from pillar to post by my boss, by my parents, whatever. I'm now doing this thing because I want to do it. And yes, it hasn't quite ended up where I want to be, but I've got the armory now. I've got the tools to be able to go one next step and then another step and then another step. And I reckon I could do that. And the impossible suddenly becomes possible, doesn't it? I think it's the phrase, impossible is just I'm possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a very quick answer there, Jeet. I was on a big rant there. I thought you were going to rant back on me. Rant back.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, I mean, I completely agree with your points, like in regards to kind of talking about the impossibilities and the way that people approach it and stuff like that. I absolutely agree with all that stuff. I think the biggest thing that I've seen from like just talking to people and just hearing about kind of their dreams and stuff like that, the biggest downfall is that people don't even want to give it a chance. They don't even look at it as a possibility, so to speak. And I think that's how they've been trained. Because like when you go to school for 12 or 16 or 20 years, however long people go to school for, it's not that they ever get a choice on what they want to do or how they want to do it. The whole time it's just, this is what you're going to do. This is the class you're going to take. This is the grade you need to take. So people, when they get older, they feel like they don't have essentially an option in anything. They feel like it's got to go as planned and it's got to be done in a certain way. So people kind of automatically cancel out those unordinary paths or those non-traditional routes. And I think that's the biggest thing kind of that stems from being so young and from like the days when you're starting school, and it kind of plays a huge factor later on in your life.
Well, this is Join Up Dot, so I'm going to take you back and join up a dot, because you were saying about organic traffic, and a lot of our listeners would be thinking, yes, I'll just throw up a website and I'm suddenly going to get 1 million visitors. And as we know, quite often that doesn't happen unless you stumble across something which is just waiting to explode out there. But you built a website and suddenly you were getting emails, suddenly you was getting conversations going, and you were getting organic traffic. And by the words organic, you weren't paying for it, it was just coming to you. Was that a fluke, or did you actually set it up in a certain way that you was expecting that to occur?
So there was definitely a lot of planning that went behind it. It was just figuring out what the result was going to be, because that was kind of unknown to me. So, I mean, when I started my blog, my biggest thing was I felt like I was a young entrepreneur and I was learning new things and experiencing new mistakes and failures and stuff like that on a daily basis. So I thought it'd be great not only for myself to be able to go back in time and see what I've been talking about and what I dealt with in the past, but just to be able to share my own life and what's going on with other entrepreneurs and other dream chasers, maybe hoping to help them in any way. So that's really what the idea came across as. And the one biggest thing that I wanted to do from day one was, because I was a big reader of our blogs like entrepreneur.com or Inc. magazine and stuff like that. But all these sites wrote very, very formally. It was like I was looking up to like a teacher or a professor or something, and they were just kind of teaching facts to me, but it wasn't very relatable. And I wanted to create a blog where I could just relate to people, be completely transparent, be completely honest, and write in a language that would essentially connect with other people. So not being formal and stuff like that, but not being afraid to write a cuss word here and there or to speak my mind and stuff like that. So that's literally what I did when I was starting my blog, and I would just kind of write these posts, share them on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, basic social networks. And I started seeing that really fast people were really connecting with the posts. They were writing comments, they were liking them, they were sharing them, and that's how they kind of slowly spread apart. And eventually, like my following and my network and my traffic on the site just slowly organically grew as more and more people connected with my message. And I think the greatest part was that I had a very strong base of loyal readers. So it wasn't like I was getting people that were coming in and reading my article once. It was more like they were subscribing and they were becoming lifelong fans of the site. and they were continuously sharing my posts. So I was kind of growing very fast like that.
So you were setting up a blog, Young Entrepreneur, and your posts on a daily basis or a weekly basis was basically detailing your successes, your failures, what you've tried, what you are scared to try. And people were then reading that. And because it was so authentically you, so honest, it built up a trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just like, let's say like I went to a meeting today and I learned something new where I made the worst sales mistake possible. I wanted to, it was kind of like for two purposes. I wanted to document it for myself. And then if anyone else could find value out of it, I wanted to do the same thing. So I would just go on my blog, let's say 2 or 3 times a week and write up a post for whatever that took place that day or earlier that week. And I would kind of just share it. So that was kind of the biggest thing that I did, and it started really other people really started finding value in it. Not just young entrepreneurs, but even older people now find tremendous value in it, and that's kind of what built up my traffic because they liked the content and they were happy to share it because it helped them.
Is that a key thing that people have to do out there? Somebody who's looking for a business opportunity, we keep on saying you've got to be authentic to yourself, because if you are authentic and you find your pure voice, it's so much easier to do it than trying to be somebody on a daily basis that's not you. It's just almost impossible. If you listen to me on the mic, it ain't much difference from myself anyway. It's just kind of a bigger version of what I am normally, so it's quite easy to do. Is that what they have to do? Do they have to find something which is basically them? And once they can stop trying to write in a way that isn't, if you go back to sort of managers in offices, when they give you reports, they always write in a really bizarre way that isn't English. Mm-hmm. They would always say, yes, Jeet is a self-contained individual and a self-motivated. And you see it on resumes and CVs as well. People write in a really kind of bizarre way because they almost feel that's what's expected. But generally what we're saying is you've got to find a way of communicating naturally. And if you can do that naturally, so it brings about the essence of who you are, it's more likely to resonate with somebody because they will understand it because it's like they are as well. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like spot on. So basically like the biggest thing I've realized is like it's crazy because it's the internet. You can't see people's faces. You can't see their tone or anything. You can't hear their tone or anything. But for some reason, people can still tell when someone is being themselves and being genuine and authentic versus when someone is being fake. Like, I don't know what it is, but even I can tell when I read something or I read a piece by someone, I can really get that. I get that feeling in the inside, whether this is really how this person feels or I feel like this is some kind of like mask that they're putting on just to write a good article. So I've seen that happen quite often. And I think the biggest thing you want to do is you want to be yourself. It's the easiest way to do it. And to put that into perspective, like I remember in school when I would have to write papers formally or whatever the case was, it would take me hours, 4 or 5 hours to put together a 2 to 3 page paper. When I go on my blog and I want to write enough words that would be equivalent to 2 to 3 pages, it might take me a half hour or 45 minutes because I'm so casual. And it's not to say that the quality is bad or negative or anything, but it's more along the lines of I don't have to think before I talk. I just talk what comes to my mind and what I think is right and how I would convey a specific message. I don't have to think of 5 different ways of writing it. I just write it. And I think that's the true way of getting your true authentic voice out there.
It's so simple, but it's so hard as well, isn't it? Because once again, we're breaking down what we've been taught in education and then employment for years and years and years. I was in employment for years and years and years, and I used to like to have fun and mischief, basically. And it wasn't frowned upon, but they didn't like it either. And so for most of my career, they've said, oh, you're a maverick, you're this, you're that. And there was always a kind of critical word that they kind of threw at me. But I look back on it now and I think that was just me being me. And when you wanted me to be the serious person in the board meeting, that was me playing a role. And the person who wanted to sort of just enjoy themselves, do the work as well as they could, but also enjoy themselves was actually my pure thing. But it's so hard to get that through to people because we believe that work has to be hard. We believe that work has to be a full day of effort. But I'm talking to people constantly that earn 3 times as much as I do, probably 10 times as much as I do, and they do about 2 hours a day. and they sort of get up, they do 2 hours a day of what they really love doing, and then they go off to the beach and they surf and they play golf and that, and you kind of think, how's that work? And the reason it's worked to them, and it has worked for them, is once again, they're finding something they can do really well, then they can do it much faster, and because it's naturally them, they're not having to think about it. They just sort of get up and do it, and away they go. And that's just brilliant, isn't it? It is totally brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it all comes down to, is when you find what you love, like the money will come to you. And I think the biggest mistake that people make is that they chase money, but money is like the most elusive object in the world. So you should chase your passions and chase your dreams, and money will automatically come and find you eventually. And I think that's the biggest thing, that if people can nail that fact down and kind of really focus and get that down to like the nitty gritty, where they stop focusing on money and they focus on personal happiness, creating value, and all these other external factors that mean a lot, money will come right into their hands without them having to try hard.
I agree with that. I've been doing this show, and you're episode 149, and I've been doing it since, I launched on the 30th of April, and I did not focus at all on making money in any shape or form. Even then, when things that I was doing externally to provide me with the opportunity to do this were not paying me as much as I was earning before, I still did not focus on money. And people were saying to me, oh, you've got to monetize this. How are you going to make money? And I was going to say, all I'm going to do is build up an audience. And if the audience is big enough, then the money will come to me. Yes, no, but you should go out looking for it. And now, as I was saying at the very beginning, I've got advertisers coming towards me, and they're saying, oh, we want to put our products at the beginning, and I want to put your products at the end, and all that kind of stuff. The money starts coming to you if you don't chase it, and it's difficult to do. And that's why we're saying, I suppose, Jeet, that you make the slide of faith. You keep something in reserve to help you in that moment, because if you can give yourself a long enough runway, you can really build on your passions, not chase the money, and ultimately win big time. That's what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly kind of the model that I started my businesses on, and it's worked amazing. So, I mean, I definitely recommend that to any listeners, anybody out there that's really kind of just solely focused on the money. Kind of take your eyes off the money and focus on some bigger things, because there are things that are bigger than money, believe me.
And you know what I found as well? I tell you what, this is the first show that I've recorded in 2 weeks. Although I've been going live every single day, I've been on holiday, so I haven't actually been doing it. And I feel very ranty tonight. I feel like I've got something on my chest that I need to get off. But what I have found as well is people that chase the money actually end up with a figure that they felt that they could achieve. So you sort of go, right, okay, I need 20 grand. I need 20 grand a year to pay all my bills. I'm going to get that 20 grand as soon as possible. And they get that 20 grand, and then that's it. But the people that sit back and they work on their passions and they provide value and they become authentic, they don't look for that money. And actually, they end up with something so much bigger. And it's almost unbelievable, the amount. And, you can put it down to talent, you can put it down to passion, you can put it down to whatever. But if you look at the people like, the Paul McCartneys and the Elton Johns and all those kind of people, yes, what are they doing? They're singing, they're writing songs, they're providing value to us. We like it. And they earn millions and millions and millions of pounds. Is it truly what they should be earning to do that? Against somebody like a doctor that goes in and they work really hard and they're running up and down the wards and they're really pushing it. Should somebody like Elton John be earning all this money? Well, kind of yes, because he's playing purely to his strengths and he is providing something that we want, so we pay him a lot of money for it. And that's the thing again, isn't it? If you go for the amount of money that you believe you can get, you miss out on the money that you don't believe you can get but will naturally come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, like I often hear that all the time, like in the media or just with people talking like, oh my God, I can't believe like Floyd Mayweather makes $60 million a fight. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's in the ring for 30, 40 minutes, whatever the case is. But I think it's a lot of things that people don't see that go on in the background that kind of have elevated him to the level of that kind of earning or whatever it is. I'm sure I know his story. He's been boxing ever since he was like 11 years old. And when you're 11 years old, you're not really thinking, oh, I'm going to box so I can make $60 million a fight. It's more like, I actually like doing this. It's a fun sport. I want to be really good at it and I want to win. And just from stemming from that belief and just keeping that belief close to heart and just fighting, you eventually get to the point where you become so good, you become such an entertainer, and you become such a icon to so many people that money will just come flowing into your bank account, whatever the case is, even though you didn't necessarily have that focus on money. So I think there's so many people out there that achieve amazing success like this, but it often goes unnoticed, or like the things behind the background go unnoticed just because people are thinking, wow, this guy earns so much money, it's all about the money. But for people that are the big earners, it's more than the money, and that's what you have to really realize.
Well, absolutely, yeah. You know, we benchmark ourselves on success, and that's one of the things that stops people trying. They look at these people and they kind of go, oh, it's all right for them. Oh, they've got a blessed life. You know, I saw Jay Leno. I was over in Las Vegas, and I went to see Jay Leno in concert. And I didn't even know he was a stand-up comedian. I didn't know much about him. I just knew he sat behind a desk and sort of chatted to people. And one of the blokes who was sitting near me, one of the chaps sitting near me, says to me, do you know he does like 265 gigs a year, stand-up? And I went, really? Does he? And when you look at it that way, that's effort. That is hard effort. And he's flying and he's going to a place and he's doing his stuff and then he's going to the next place and then he was doing the Tonight Show and he's getting back. But all we see is that he's sitting behind a desk having a chat and it just seems easy. But really what he's been doing, he's fine-tuning himself for years and years and years to make it seem easy. And unfortunately for all of us, that's the bit we see. So we all look at it and go, I could do that. It'd be no problem. I could sit behind a desk and have a chat to somebody. But of course, you haven't seen those dodgy clubs and those horrible hotels and everything that he's using to sort of force himself up and, you know, working on his chops, working on his jokes to be able to get himself to that point that it seems effortless. And then the money comes to us. Stops us in our tracks, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
I tell you what I like about you, Jeet, and I like so many things about you. It's untrue, but what I like about you is you are totally yourself. We've already touched on that. You know what you want to do, but you are giving back to people. And when you said that you wrote those 3 things out, and one was basketball, one was tutorship, and one was building websites, you've really kind of you've left basketball behind a bit, but you've taken 2 of them, haven't you? So you've taken the tutorship because you now teach entrepreneurs how to get going, and you brought that element into you, and that is the part that almost is lighting you up inside because you prefer that ability to actually lay in your bed at night and go, yes, that person emailed me, and because of me, it's made their life a little bit easier. That is actually what lights you up inside, and that is the thing that people need. They need people like you, Jeet, and that's what I like about you. You're successful. You're doing what you're doing, but you're also helping people. That's a good way of doing it.
I appreciate that, and like where that really comes from is when I kind of decided that I want to become an entrepreneur. I was surprised to see how much wealth of information, articles, videos, and stuff that other successful entrepreneurs had thrown out into the internet, and that material really enabled me to be successful. So ever since that day, I promised myself that no matter what happens, if I did find success and I learned stuff as an entrepreneur, I would do the exact same thing. That way someone else that's following in the same footsteps of becoming an entrepreneur would have more resources and more knowledge to be able to succeed. Because if I honestly didn't have those resources and that knowledge on the internet, I don't know if I would have been successful today, because that stuff helped so much. And it's all thanks to people that took time out of their busy lives that were very successful and said, you know what, I'm going to give back to the community so that we can get 100 people that are just as successful as me. So that's really where that whole thing comes from.
And guess what, G? I'm going to let you into a secret. You've got the internet and I've got the internet, and all our listeners have got the internet as well because they're listening to this. So if they want to do something and they want to follow a path, but they don't know how to do it, I'm kind of saying that they could do what you did. And they could research. And in their lunch breaks, when they're in that rubbish job, they could actually look at a few websites and find out how other people have got going. And the thing that I find most appealing to this, and I find it time and time again, is when you reach out to somebody who is already doing what you want to do, 9 times out of 10, they will actually help you. And it was a real mindset shift when I started this that I realized I could reach out to complete strangers and they would be willing to help. And there's a kind of pay it forward thing in the world, which you kind of think it isn't there until you get into it and you realize that the most successful people will help you and the people that are just ahead of the curve will help you. And it's that ability, as you were saying, it's that ability to feel good about yourself and make yourself feel that you are assisting. That really is what this world is all about. And there's more people out there that will reach out to these people who are struggling to get it going than not. Was there somebody that you had? Did you reach out to somebody not expecting an answer in the early days, but actually got an answer and that gave you the sort of the fuel to actually think, yes, I could do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there was someone by the name of Neil Patel who I'd kind of reached out to. I kind of looked up to a lot of the stuff he had done and was really excited about his accomplishments and the opportunity to talk to him. So I sent an email. I really didn't think I was going to get any response or anything, but I just did it for the sake of doing it. And within...
Let's just touch on that. Why did you think, because it's true, we all think, but why did you think that you weren't going to get any response?
The biggest thing was I felt like this person probably gets 100 of these emails a day. I'm just some random kid. We have no connection. I almost thought it's borderline weird probably because this was when I was 17 years old. So I was like, I don't see this happening, but I'm just going to do it, whatever, take a leap of faith. It's kind of like that eyes closed syndrome, just do it type of thing. And that's really why I didn't think I was going to get a response, was because he's so busy, so successful, and he must get hundreds of these responses. So what makes me so special? So that's really what I thought.
Limiting beliefs, self-limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we go, oh, that person's so busy, that person's so successful. And I'm talking to people now who seem like that, and they're saying, I do 2 hours a day. And you think, blimey, why are we all thinking that these successful people are so snowed under that they can't respond to an email? Because most of them are successful because they've streamlined, they've got virtual assistants, they've got assistants, they've got people to help them. And a lot of the things that bog you down when you start are not in their realms anymore. They've sort of handed it over. So there's certain sort of social media and different administration tasks. And so Neil Patel, I can imagine, would have been delighted to get that email from you. Even if a sort of an assistant had printed it up, looked at it and thought, oh, I'll hand it over to Neil, because it's something that is different from his normal day. And I love it when I get emails through from people, or people say, oh, you know, what do you think about this? And would you like a chat and all that kind of stuff? Because it confirms that what you're trying to do in the world is having an impact. I suppose that is it in its nuts and bolts. And so he received that email and he just knew that he's touched this 17-year-old and it was all worthwhile. That was why he was doing it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the same goes for me. Like when I see a new email from someone through my website or someone looking for help, it's really exciting because it's something different. It's something really where I get that heartfelt opportunity to help change someone else's life. So I love answering those kinds of emails, and I try to give responses very, very quickly, and I try to give detailed responses, not like a one-liner or something like that. Like I really care about what they have to say, how I can help them, and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like a lot of other successful people that have these big, ginormous hearts feel the same way. And it's just, you just have to take that leap of faith, and you just have to believe that the role model you look up to, or this person just have that big heart. And if he sees the email, he will respond to you. And that's just all what it comes down to.
Have you heard of Vocaroo? Vocaroo?
No, I have not.
No, I get, because this is brilliant. I've started using this because when I started this job, I'd get emails from people and I would write really lengthy emails back. And now I'm getting so many of them. I'm trying to respond to everyone. But I've discovered this online voice recorder. It's free, called a Vocaroo, VOCAR00. And you can actually record your answer and send it with an email, and they can play it. And it's brilliant because they hear your voice and they know it's from you, and you're really connecting with people. And God, it's so much quicker than actually writing an email. You just basically record what you would say, send it to them, and it's 100 times more powerful. It's called Vocaroo. It's brilliant. Okay,
awesome. Yeah, I just wrote that down. I'm definitely going to check that out after That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and you just send it across, and it kind of, I suppose, hopefully, fingers crossed, it makes them feel better. I'll tell you who I got that from. There's a chap called John Lee Dumas. Are you aware of John Lee Dumas? He's a podcasting legend.
Yeah.
And I sent him an email on New Year's Day. Because he always used to say, I get up 5 o'clock every day. And I emailed him to say, John, I do hope you aren't up at 5 a.m. on New Year's Day, for God's sake kind of thing, as a sort of tongue-in-cheek email. And he actually sent me this response back with this like little voice on it. And I clicked it, and it was him. It was him sort of answering me saying, no, we had a few drinks last night, we did this, we did that, and I'm having a sleep in today, all that kind of stuff. And I was really touched. And I thought to myself, when I launch my podcast, that's what I'm going to do, because what you're doing then, you're bridging gaps, aren't you? You're actually trying to connect with people. And once you do connect with people, once again, there's a groundswell that you suddenly see that your authentic self can be shared again.
Yeah, definitely. This is really awesome. Yeah, I'm excited because I think that'll not only save me a lot of time, but like you said, it really puts that personal touch with a complete stranger that kind of unifies that connection. So I love this. This sounds like an awesome software.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Just before we send you back on the sermon on the mic, I am going to play the Steve Jobs speech because it is the theme of the show. Where are you heading? Because you're 21 now, and you are ahead of the curve. I think you are. And I know there's sort of 14, 15-year-olds coming out, but you're really sort of going great guns. Where do you see your life in the next 5 or 10 years? Do you have plans, or are you kind of making it up as you go along?
So I definitely do have a lot of goals and like plans that I've set forth for myself. I think the biggest one I have is that I want to be completely financially free by the time I turn 25. So that basically means that money isn't really a question on any purchase or anything that I want to do. So that's like my biggest goal. And then I guess kind of looking forward in the next 5 to 10 years, I love technology and everything that comes with it, but I also want to kind of expand my businesses and kind of do stuff outside of just technology. Like I have passions of opening up restaurants or franchises, getting into real estate, stuff like that. So I've got kind of these benchmarks and future plans that I have that I really want to try out and see where it goes. So those are also some things that I'm looking at moving forward.
Does anything scare you now, Jeet?
To be honest, nothing really does scare me nowadays. I think I've kind of gone past I've kind of been able to learn how to tackle fear and how all that stuff works. So there's nothing that can actually really scare me.
Nothing at all?
No, nothing at all.
Even if I go boo like that, did that scare you, Jeet?
That one didn't scare me, but maybe if someone came out of a corner or something and did that, maybe I'd have a fright. But yeah, that would actually probably scare me. You're right.
Absolutely. Always shout out boo when you least expect it. So let's play the words of Steve Jobs. And as I say, then I'm going to send you back in time. But I am fascinated to see whether the actual joining up dots of your life, you can actually trace it back. So this is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college. But it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So I know you're only 21, but can you join the dots up for your life? Can you say, yes, I've got here because of that and that and that, just like Steve Jobs is saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually can. So I think the biggest thing, like looking all the way back to like my childhood, is like moment my parents came here when like just a year before I was born, and my parents didn't have a lot of money, none of that stuff. So from an early age, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and not seeing my dad at home because he was out working and trying to support the family and kind of do these things. So from a very young age, I had this idea of hard work really instilled into my mind. And I kind of saw this like almost like change, because in the beginning, my father was working jobs and stuff like that for maybe like the first 9, 10, 11 years of his life. And then on the side, while he was working his job, he decided to open up his own company. And then that company was slowly growing. But I just kind of remember kind of like as the company did better and as he kind of went full time into the company, we moved out of like the ghetto area. We moved out of the apartments. We moved into a bigger house. So it was kind of like being able to see these tangible things happen around me, like how A and B is leading to C. So how working hard, starting your own business, like these ideas were kind of instilled into my mind, even though I didn't believe that this is the path I was going to take at the time. These ideas were instilled into my mind at a very early age. And then kind of looking forward, like the biggest thing that really changed my perspective was when I got the job. When I got some jobs and stuff like that, I really quickly realized how horrifying it really was to work these jobs. And I kind of really understood what my father would talk about and why he'd be so frustrated when he got home after working all night and stuff like that. And that's when it kind of hit me, because I'd seen this in the previous years that, okay, if you really want to keep expanding yourself, you don't like the job idea, then you start your own business and kind of take this path. So I was kind of able to almost connect dots from like from what my father had gone through and kind of what I had learned from just watching and listening. And I was able to kind of connect those dots, kind of looking back into my own life. And I kind of used those experiences to get where I am today, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Is there a big dot in your life when you look back and go, yes, Jeet Banerjee was born then, that was the moment?
I think the biggest dot that I can connect in my life is probably like at 9, just having the passion, having the will, and just having the creative ability or the imagination to say, I'm going to create a website, and to actually be able to go through with it. Like at the time, it didn't seem like such a great accomplishment, but kind of when I look back now, I'm like, that was like the day that like my creative side was born, and kind of like almost like my dream big, like the dreamer inside me was born on that day, essentially, because I had a dream and I didn't let it sit there. I actually did something about it.
I admire that. And that's the thing that I want all the listeners to listen and sort of really listen again and jot it down. You had a dream and you went for it. And it's as simple as that, isn't it, really? You took action. You decided on something and you took action. And if it failed, then at least you tried.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the best quote that I believe in is that doubt and fear will kill more dreams than failure ever will. And I think that sums it all up.
I think it sums it up nicely as well. Well, this is the end of the show, and this is the bit when I send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if I could send you back, what age, Jeet, would you speak to? Would you speak to the 9-year-old power dunk one? Would you speak to the sort of 13-year-old one and go, what the hell are you doing? You know, keep going at it. So I'm going to play the theme tune, and when it fades out, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
With the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
So kind of looking back, I guess the age that I'd probably want to go back and talk to myself would be like at 15, because I think that was like the time that's when I started getting my jobs, and I kind of started like getting a larger experience of life. And I think the biggest thing that I would tell myself back then was one thing is that even though I was working jobs and stuff that I didn't like, what I ended up doing a lot of times is I wouldn't give it my full effort. And like after looking back, no matter what you're doing or how you're doing something, I think you should always give your full effort, even if it's not something you like. And that's just so that you can get the most out of each experience. And I think that's one thing I never did at that age. So when I immediately found something that I didn't like, I just kind of turned myself off, and I just put in the bare minimum that I needed to do in order to successfully kind of move past it. So I think that's one thing. And then the second thing that I would kind of talk to my younger self about was kind of learning to listen more. Because when I was at that age, I just wanted to talk. And it took me a couple of years to really figure out that if you keep your mouth shut, you listen, you're going to learn so much, and you don't always have to get the last word in, or you don't always have to talk and stuff like that. So that was another key thing that I would probably try teaching myself, because I think I could have learned a lot more.
Gee, how can our audience connect with you, sir?
So the best way to learn about me, connect with me, read my blog, email me, whatever it is through my personal website, which is jeetbanerjee.com, spelled JeetBanerjee.com.
We will have all the links on our show notes. We will have Facebook, we will have Twitter, we'll have LinkedIn and the website as well, so people can connect with you easily. Jeet, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past, it's the best way to build our futures. Jeet Banerjee, thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.
Yes, hello there. Do you know, during the show, I was just looking through the iTunes reviews that everyone's left. Oh, I've had some amazing ones. Well, every single one is amazing. They're all 5-star. Why will they not be 5-star? Because it's a 5-star show. But I haven't seen one from you. Is it something I've said? Is it me? Please tell me, is it me? Well, if it's just an oversight, please make amends by going over to iTunes and looking for Join Up Dots with David Ralph. And if you could find a few moments to leave a 5-star rating and review, oh, it'd be absolutely amazing. And it will really push my show further up the rankings and make it more of a show that I want to deliver to you on a daily basis. So if you could do that, thank you so much. And I tell you what, I might even come and mow your lawn this Sunday.